He challenged her to dance. A tango. What happened next changed everything in just 60 seconds. Sara stood at the art studio entrance, her heart racing as she peered into the vibrant interior filled with laughter and rhythmic music. For countless years, she had nurtured young minds in a small Midwestern town. Yet here, in the bubble of creativity before her, she felt strangely displaced. The whispers of the affluent parents of her students echoed in her mind, their skepticism stitched deeply into her spirit. What would they think? A teacher like Sara dancing? The moment she stepped in, Matt's voice broke through her thoughts, a mischievous grin lighting his face. Come on, you can't resist a tango challenge, can you? Sara's stomach tightened. She admired Matt, her friend, the owner with charm and charisma, but his wealth seemed a cloak that left her feeling exposed. The challenge hung in the air, a teasing invitation that beckoned her with the thrill of possibility and the terror of judgment. What if she failed? What if she stumbled? The laughter around her felt like a reminder of her place. Subtle, sweet, but stinging. As the dance lessons unfolded, the enchanting notes of tango music swirled around her. Each beat resonated within her, stirring emotions she buried deeply. Her feet moved with awkwardness, but her mind raced with insecurities. Would they see her as a fraud? Years of feeling unworthy resurfaced, like ink blotting through old paper. She stumbled during one lesson, and her mind spiraled into a whirlpool of despair. Hadn't Matt let slip that his family had always held a certain disdain for those without means? The subtlety of his socio-economic backdrop slithered back into her thoughts, the shadows of his upbringing darkening their friendship. She ached with the knowledge that he belonged to the privileged circle that sometimes seemed so impenetrable. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A knot formed in her stomach as she watched the other dancers glide effortlessly, their confidence illuminating the room. Sara stood tucked in the corner, grappling with the two halves of herself, the teacher who inspired children to face their fears, and the woman paralyzed by her own self-doubts. The time was approaching for the charity gala, the moment when she would have to decide whether to take that leap and dance. The thought horrified her. Yet there was a flicker of determination within. Her heart beat in tandem with the haunting tango melody, urging her toward something greater than the fear itself. As the night fell, excitement mingled with dread. Backstage, surrounded by whispers and laughter, Sara felt small, trapped in the clutches of her insecurities. All eyes would be on her, judging her every move. The crowd's applause felt like a tidal wave against her fragile facade. Could she face them? Really be seen? Could she push past the invisible walls they had built around her, both theirs and her own? With each second ticking away, the decision loomed, and in that moment, she felt as if everything hinged on the outcome of this performance. The spotlight would soon shine on her. Will she confront her fears, or allow them to pull her back into the shadows? The question hung thick in the air, captivating her very essence. What would she choose when the curtains finally rose? The room buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to her inner turmoil. Sara stood behind the curtain, her palms clammy as she gripped the fabric. The anticipation of the performance clawed at her throat. Hidden within the folds of doubt, however, lurked a burgeoning ember of resolve. Was she truly ready to step into the light? The music started, resonating through the walls like the heartbeat of the universe, each note echoing her rising fear. Sara's mind raced through every imperfection, every moment of hesitation. Yet, on the periphery, she glimpsed her students' phrases of encouragement, sweet reminders of her past, a teacher designed to empower others. Those faces flashed before her, illuminating paths once forgotten. I'm not just a teacher. she whispered softly, chasing away the shame. I can be more. With a deep breath, she stepped fully onto the stage, her heart pounding to the rhythm of the music. The spotlight felt like a physical weight pressing down on her, yet she forced herself to step forward, embodying the confidence she admired in others. The audience, strangers and familiar faces alike, watched with eager anticipation. Their eyes were pools of possibilities and expectations. As she began to dance, uncertainty flickered under her skin, but her feet found their rhythm. Each movement blended fear with exhilaration. She was not flawless. A wobble here, a missed cue there, yet each mistake felt human, grounding her further in the dance. The spotlight no longer felt like an executioner, but a guide, revealing her spirit piece by piece. During a particularly dramatic turn, Matt joined her on stage, his presence both comforting and intimidating. His assuredness flowed around her like a protective barrier. They danced as one, partners in a battle against self-doubt. Sara could feel the energy shift. The audience leaned in, captivated. She began to respond to the music not just with her body, but with her breath, allowing herself to feel deeply and connect. The moment stretched and twisted, as her insecurities melted into a realization. Sara was not defined by her fears, nor the judgments of others. Each time she faltered, each moment where doubt gnawed at her confidence, she saw it as an opportunity to reclaim her narrative. The screw-ups became stepping stones, each imperfection adding depth and texture to her performance. As the performance reached its crescendo, she twirled, lifting her chin to catch a glimpse of the crowd's faces. No longer were they judgmental ghosts. They were simply witnesses to her journey. They saw not just mistakes, but resilience. Her heart soared. She felt alive. She was no longer wrestling with whether she deserved their applause. She reveled in the freedom of expression. With a final flourish, they ended in a dramatic pose as the audience erupted into applause, a sound that reverberated through her very being. As the lights dimmed, Matt leaned in, whispering, "You were incredible, Sara. You've got to believe it." She looked into his eyes, searching for the confidence he exuded, realizing in that moment that the journey was just beginning. It was not merely about the tango or the gala. It was about discovering herself in layers and revealing fragments of her truth to the world. Standing before the curtain, a mixture of emotions surged through her: exhilaration, vulnerability, pride. What would she do next with this newfound sense of self? Could she cultivate this feeling beyond the dance floor? Just as she turned to step off stage, a thought struck her with unwavering clarity. Pushing past fears had awakened something deeper. The rhythm of the tango was imbued in her, steering her toward uncharted waters. In this momentum, Sara faced a pivotal decision. How could she expand her newfound confidence into her everyday life? The whisper of her aspirations called from the shadows, urging her to transform her experience into something more profound. The true challenge awaited. Would she harness this moment and dive into the unknown, venturing beyond the studio, embracing risks that might redefine her life? The future loomed ahead, shrouded in mystery and full of potential, waiting for her to take the next daring step. Stepping backstage, the adrenaline still crackled through Sara's veins like a live wire. The applause lingered in her ears, but beneath that rush lay an unsettling question. What now? The exhilarating performance had catalyzed a shadowy ambition that had long felt dormant within her. Each bow taken was like a declaration, yet the moment she stepped off stage, the echoes of past insecurities pulled at her resolve. As she descended the dimly lit hallway, she caught a glimpse of herself in a reflective surface. The woman staring back was different, more defined, more vibrant. It was the realization that she was not merely an instructor, but a performer, capable of captivating not just others, but herself as well. The thought exhilarated and terrified her in equal measure. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of reflection and growth. Those dance classes, once a series of mundane routines, transformed into sacred spaces where she unleashed this evolving self. Every student, every twirl, every stumble became part of a larger narrative she was shaping. They mirrored her journey, their purpose folding seamlessly into her ambitions. Yet, lurking beneath this euphoria, a question simmered. Was she ready to take the leap beyond the stage of her dance studio? One evening, Sara found herself lingering at a luncheon with fellow educators discussing their passions and aspirations. A colleague, Angela, was expressing her desire to create a theater program for at-risk students. As Sara listened, an unexpected pang of envy gripped her heart. Angela was unearthing her dreams, while Sara remained stagnant in familiar territory. "Why not you?" a voice whispered, a curious inner proclamation that surprised her. Why not initiate a program of her own and merge dancing with teaching in a way that invited students to embrace their fears? Transforming her dance background into a tool for empowerment suddenly felt like an attainable goal. The next few days turned into an exploration of uncharted territory. She began drafting a proposal for after-school workshops that could intertwine dance with personal development, allowing students to articulate their experiences through movement. A bold vision blossomed, and with it surfaced fears that had dogged her from the outset. What if no one was interested? What if she failed to inspire? But for the first time, those doubts felt less ominous, instead serving as benchmarks for progress. Addressing those hurdles would require strategies beyond just movement. She began researching ways to effectively communicate her ideas, intuitively drawing parallels between choreography and life plans. Each late-night brainstorming session filled her with purpose. As the weeks rolled on, Sara approached local community centers, sharing her aspirations and sowing the seeds for her new initiative. Each discussion heightened her conviction. She was not merely advocating for dance, she was championing self-discovery and resilience. As she spoke about her vision, she could see glimpses of intrigue in her audience, their faces illuminated with the possibility of attendance. However, challenges emerged. One evening, she found herself tackling the undeniable truth. Her ideas faced skepticism. An opportunity to present her workshop concept to a board arose, but the thought of facing a panel of seasoned educators sent her spiraling into doubt. They would expect a polished professional with hand-picked statistics and undeniable success stories to back her mission. Sara hesitated at the thought of potential rejection. Would they see merit in her dreams? Would they recognize the strength behind her turbulent journey? That night, sitting on the floor of her living room littered with papers and plans, a profound realization struck. If she was going to embody the empowerment she preached, she would need to embrace the possibility of failure, just as she had on stage. The next morning, she'd dedicate herself to facing that board and speaking directly from her heart, unveiling the raw connection between dance, fear, and transformation. The moment of truth was fast approaching. She would either soar or stumble, but what mattered most was that she would finally dare to leap. As the date of her presentation approached, a new, unexpected voice began to echo within her mind. Would she be able to navigate the questioning gaze of the board, or would she crumble under pressure? The day of the presentation arrived, and as Sara stood before the panel, she noticed her heart thumping fiercely in her chest, each beat a reminder of the stakes. The board sat before her, a mix of skeptical, seasoned educators and a few friendly faces that had encouraged her from the beginning. Despite the familiar faces, the atmosphere felt electric, charged with uncertainty. Sara adjusted the stack of notes at her fingertips, her hands trembling slightly as she scanned the room, searching for glimpses of support. Yet, with every second that ticked by, her confidence felt like a fragile filament, one flick away from breaking. She took a breath, summoning the resolve that had taken months to cultivate. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm excited to share a vision today that blends dance with personal growth." As she introduced her workshop concept, the words poured out with unexpected passion. Each anecdote about her experiences as both a dancer and an instructor, became a thread weaving together the tapestry of her vision. But then came the questions. One board member raised an eyebrow and pressed, "What evidence do you have that this approach will work? Dance can be subjective. Why should we invest resources into this?" Her heart sank, and the walls around her seemed to close in. She could feel the weight of doubt creeping back, but she resisted its pull. This was not just about the workshop. It was about everything she had fought to achieve. Instead of recoiling, she embraced the challenge. "Dance is subjective, yes, but it is universally relatable," Sara replied, her voice gaining momentum. "It's a powerful medium for communication. Every student has a story, and movement is one way to articulate that. I have seen it with my own students. Through dance, they have transformed their fears into expressions of strength." As she spoke, she remembered the faces of her students, their reluctance giving way to joy as they discovered their voices through movement. She felt the words pulse with authenticity, carrying the weight of her journey. Each moment spent crafting class routines, each hesitant step taken by inexperienced dancers flooded her mind. The questions persisted, but Sara leaned into them, undeterred. Each inquiry she faced challenged her perspective, allowing her to refine her argument. With each responsive detail, she felt the grip of insecurity slipping. Perhaps a part of her success lay not just in presenting a flawless concept, but in being able to adapt her vision in real time, balancing conviction with openness. The presentation drew to a close. Sara felt a tension release within her, though she still spotted uncertainty in the board members' expressions. Yet when she concluded, she didn't feel deflated but invigorated. If nothing else, she had shared her authentic self, unfiltered and vulnerable, a reflection of the very essence she sought to teach her students. As she walked out, a wave of relief washed over her. She had faced the skepticism and navigated the labyrinth of doubt. The manner of her delivery became a landmark realization. She could transform adversity into a dance of its own, an art form crafted from obstacles. However, in the days following her presentation, echoes of uncertainty remained. While she awaited feedback, Sara knew this moment of vulnerability was only the beginning. Reflecting on her journey, she understood that embracing fear had its own rhythm. She was no longer just hitching a ride on a burst of inspiration. She was building a lifeline for herself, harnessing her ambitions into tangible strides. Yet, as she harnessed newfound confidence, a different worry began to surface. What if she was prepared to lead others to embrace their fears, but wasn't fully equipped to confront her own? In the quiet moments before sleep, thoughts swirled as she pondered the weight of the board's decision. What if the rejection came? How would she respond? Those musings danced around her mind, a choreography still in progress, signaling that the journey ahead murmured clarifications while deeper conflicts remained unaddressed. And in that fragile space of uncertainty, she recognized a challenging truth. The measure of her growth would not lie in external validation, but in her ability to remain steadfast in her pursuit, however unpredictable the path. But in the aftermath of that realization, another question unfurled within. What hidden fears would she have to confront next to truly allow her vision to take flight? Sara sat on her bed, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the room, creating a chiaroscuro effect that mirrored her internal conflict. The echoes of her presentation lingered like a charred remnant after a fire, smoky and heavy. While she savored the taste of triumph, the bite of potential rejection gnawed at her insides as she resolved to dig deeper. She pulled out her journal, a place where she allowed herself the freedom to explore tangled thoughts without fear of judgment. Flipping to a fresh page, she wrote, "What am I truly afraid of?" It was a simple question, yet the answer felt complex and layered. Beneath the surface of uncertainty lived a primal fear of inadequacy, the fear of failing to inspire those she sought to guide, the fear of becoming nothing more than a shadow of her aspirations. What if she crossed that line into chaotic vulnerability and truly exposed herself? That thought stirred the adrenaline slightly. Wouldn't that expose all her shortcomings too? Yet, she realized that exposing her vulnerabilities might create bridges instead of walls. She had to embrace this duality: the teacher and the student, the mentor and the mentee. Inspired, she decided to tackle this fear head-on. The next day, she reached out to her friend Leo, an accomplished dancer known for his enigmatic style and unpredictable choreography. "I want you to challenge me," she said, her voice steady, yet tinged with resolve. "Let's create a spontaneous dance routine without any preparation, something raw." "Ah, the tango!" Leo's eyes sparkled, recognizing a challenge wrapped in an invitation. "Let's dance a tango. It's all about connection, having faith in your partner. Are you ready for that?" The thought made her stomach twist. Tango wasn't just a dance. It embodied passion and vulnerability. "I'll do it," she affirmed, her heart racing, electricity coursing through her body. It was a choice that walked the fine line between exhilaration and fear. In the studio the next evening, the atmosphere buzzed with the anticipation of unstructured movement. Mirrors surrounded them, reflections of dancers lost in their own worlds, each step a negotiation with uncertainty. As the music reverberated through the room, she felt the rhythm seep into her skin, igniting her courage. Leo approached her, extending his hand, an invitation wrapped in confidence. "Ready?" he asked, his voice inviting yet challenging. She took his hand, and for a moment, the world outside vanished. Then it began. The music surged, and she was swept into the embrace of movement. Her heart raced, struggling to sync with the beats in Leo's firm grip. She faltered initially. Her feet betrayed her, unsure of how to navigate the passion that surged between them. Yet, in that dance, she began to feel the transformative experience of letting go. The embrace of spontaneity nudged the hesitation from her heart. With every step, her doubts slipped away. It was an intoxicating release, a thrilling alchemy of risk and trust. As they twirled, Leo whispered, "See? Let the rhythm guide you. Trust yourself." In those moments, Sara didn't just dance. She confronted the crux of her fear, believing in herself, moving with authenticity regardless of the outcome. When the music ended, they froze in a final pose, the room echoing with their heavy breaths. The applause from unseen observers broke the intimate cocoon they had created. For the first time in a long while, Sara felt exhilaration. Not from the outside approval, but because she had faced her fears completely, allowing herself to be vulnerable. Emboldened, she realized that the power of her workshop lay not only in teaching her students to express themselves through dance, but also in fostering that same fearlessness in her own life. That night, as she lay in bed, an unexpected thought washed over her. Success wouldn't be defined by the board's approval, but by her choices and the courage she exhibited in the face of vulnerability. The walls of uncertainty began to crumble, replaced by a firm foundation of self-belief. But just as the dawn of clarity approached, new fears emerged, more profound than she anticipated. How could she foster this newfound strength within herself while simultaneously edifying others? Isn't it easier to push others past their limits while standing safely in the shadows? And as these thoughts crept in, a provocative challenge invaded her mind. What would happen if she not only invited her students to dance with their fears, but simultaneously laid her own bare before them? The next chapter awaited her. The following day, the studio felt different. Sara arrived early, the room infused with an electricity born from determination. The walls were the same, the polished floor reflecting her anxious smile. Yet she sensed a shift within herself. Today would not just be another day of teaching. It would mark a departure from her previous self, the timid mentor who feared showing vulnerability. As her students trickled in, a mixture of excitement and apprehension rippled through her. It was as though each dancer carried their own unspoken fears, just as she did. Watching them interact, she realized they were not mere pupils. They held immense potential, waiting for her to unlock it. She needed to embody the very principles she sought to instill in them. "Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll challenge ourselves," she announced, her voice steady, yet her heart was drumming a frantic beat. "I want to explore not just your dance skills today, but your ability to confront fear through movement. We're going to partner up and dance on the edge of uncertainty." The students exchanged intrigued glances. Sara felt her confidence waver, but she pushed through that trembling moment of doubt. "We're going to create a spontaneous routine, but here's the catch. I want you to share something vulnerable with your partner before we dance." A murmur of surprise echoed through the group. The challenge was unconventional, fraught with emotional risk. Beneath the veneer of their usual camaraderie lay a complex landscape of insecurities. What if, like her, they closed up instead of embracing the opportunity? She scanned their faces, a mixture of eagerness and reticence. Would they break through these barriers? Just as the thought pooled in her mind, she caught sight of Leo, waiting at the back of the room, a subtle smile on his face. This was it. She needed to lead by example. Without thinking further, she called Leo forward. "Would you be my partner?" she asked, feeling a spark of hope ignite. "Let's show them how it's done." Pulling from the depths of her training, she drew upon their recent tango. It felt like a rekindled flame igniting that exhilarating blend of trust and chaos. As they joined hands, she shared a piece of herself. "I often doubt my ability to guide you all. It terrified me to open up and admit my fears, but I've realized that facing them could inspire you more than just perfecting your technique." Leo's eyes widened, then softened. "That's the point, Sara. We all share that same fear. Vulnerability can transfer into power." She felt a rush of understanding bridge the gap between them. Taking a deep breath, they allowed the music to wash over them once more. Their movements carried the weight of her revelations. In those moments, amidst improvisation and vulnerability, the room transformed from a classroom into a shared emotional landscape. Sara could see her students begin to let go. One by one, they shared their stories, moments of trepidation, of self-doubt, of dreams deferred, and then stepped into the rhythm of their dance. It was exhilaratingly chaotic, yet the beauty of it lay in their trust, both in themselves and each other. She watched as one student, Sara, struggled at first to mimic the fluidity of movement that Sara showcased earlier. But when she shared her struggle with performance anxiety, it unlocked a new depth to her dance. She began to embrace her imperfections, and suddenly she flowed effortlessly, drawing applause that rang like affirmations. The hour slipped by in a haze of movement and laughter, their collective breaths woven into the fabric of resilience. Each motion became a declaration, a testament to the courage Sara finally cultivated, the notion that it was okay not to be perfect, to allow the rawness of emotions to drive her art. As they gathered in a circle to share their experiences, a subtle connection enveloped the room. Sara felt empowered. She wasn't the only one breaking barriers today. They were all confronting fears together, and it stirred something within her, an ambition to continue this deep exploration. But just as she beamed with pride, a voice in the back of her head stirred, quaking the triumph she presently embraced. Could she take this concept further? Was she prepared to explore deeper vulnerabilities in her next workshop? The lingering thought pressed against her mind, darker and more compelling than before. What would happen if she shared her deepest lessons, a misstep from her past that had nearly silenced her? The next class awaited her. Sara awoke the following morning with a sense of unease that overshadowed the excitement of her previous day. The possibility of unveiling her past loomed large, yet every fiber of her being hesitated. There was a fine line between vulnerability for growth and exposure that could shatter the image she'd worked so hard to craft. Yet she couldn't shake the notion that honesty could ignite not just her journey, but also those of her students. The studio held a familiar rhythm as she entered. Each step echoed the uncertainties swirling inside her. She had felt liberated the day before, but that liberation came with a distinct cost: the fear of stripping bare the person behind the educator. She took a deep breath, grounding herself. Her resolve solidified, and she reminded herself that she had always encouraged her dancers to step beyond their apprehensions. It was now her turn. As her students filed in, she was greeted by a tapestry of eager faces. Anticipation mixed with concern danced in their eyes. She recalled their shimmering vulnerability from the previous day, and it stirred her deeply. They were ready for more. "Today," she announced, striving for authority while masking her inner quaking, "we will dance deeper. This class will test our limits not just physically, but emotionally." Her heart raced at the idea of revealing a pivotal moment from her own life. It was a sharp memory, one that brought with it waves of embarrassment and introspection. How could she guide them in their exploration of fear if she wasn't willing to confront her own? "I want to start by sharing something personal," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "When I began dancing, I struggled with immense self-doubt. I had a significant performance that I flubbed badly. So badly that it nearly made me quit. I let my fear control me." She paused, gauging the expressions in the room. A symphony of emotions unfolded before her: curiosity, understanding, perhaps even fear mirroring her own. This was the moment of truth. "What I learned is that fear can be a pitiable companion, yet it can also be a catalyst for transformation. It's about how we choose to move forward despite it." The words tumbled out, each infused with a raw honesty she hadn't expected. As she spoke, she wondered if revealing such a painful chapter was wise. What if they judged her harshly? Or worse, what if they lost faith in her guidance? But in sharing her misstep, she felt a collective exhale wash over her, a release that reverberated through the room. When she asked for partners, the energy shifted. Students expressed eagerness to take risks, the bonds between them visibly strengthening. She noticed Sara again, a focal point of transformation in her own dance journey. The girl danced with an energy that was bright and fearless, spurred on by Sara's narrative. "Let's create a moment," Sara encouraged. "This time, pair up and reflect on a fear that has held you back. Use movement to express it." As they danced, the studio turned into a living tapestry of emotion once more, with movements narrating tales of hardship and resilience. Some struggled, others flourished, finding strength in their shared stories. Sara moved among them, encouraging them through their battles, immersing herself in their challenges and victories. Each turn, each lift communicated where words often failed. But the revelations of the day drew a persistent question to the forefront of Sara's thoughts. Would her shared narrative embolden them, or would it sow doubt in their trust? The line between being relatable and appearing weak blurred. As they concluded the class, a palpable sense of community enveloped the dancers, yet Sara couldn't shake the gnawing apprehension. What if this openness created a vulnerability she hadn't prepared for? The lesson lingered, not just for her students, but for her. Today, she had peeled back layers, exposing herself in a way she'd never imagined. Yet, the true challenge lay ahead, an unseen road that twisted into uncertainties. What if she surrendered even more of herself in the next workshop, facing the echoes of her past that still haunted her today? Sara awoke the next morning, her mind whirling. The weight of her previous day's revelations hovered, mixing with a distinct sense of exhilaration and dread. What she had shared seemed to create an unspoken bond with her students, yet it left her exposed. The urge to retreat into the safe shell she had crafted began gnawing at her. Today would be marked with the Tango challenge she had set with herself, a test of her resolve and an embodiment of the raw vulnerability she wished to foster. As she prepared for class, Sara fashioned her movements with precision, fueled by the flame of purpose ignited in her heart. Each stretch and turn in front of the mirror was not merely physical, but a rehearsal for the emotional dance ahead. The nuances of the tango, the tight embraces, the intricate footwork, the lead and follow dynamic, echoed the struggle she faced in her own life. It embodied the give and take she hoped to achieve with her students, cultivating their collective strength while confronting individual fears. Upon arrival at the studio, Sara found her students brimming with anticipation. Their faces reflected something she hadn't fully grasped until that moment, a curious energy that masked their insecurities. "Today," she began, her voice steadying, "we're diving deeper into connection through Tango. It's an exploration of vulnerability that ties back to our previous discussions." They nodded collectively, but Sara could feel an undercurrent of tension. The dance wouldn't merely involve steps. It would demand unveiling truths about themselves. The heart of the tango lay in its emotional expression, a territory she was now urging her students to navigate. "Before we begin, I want to challenge you," she declared, moving toward the stereo to cue the music. "Find a partner, and I want you to listen to their movements as though you're hearing their unspoken words. Reflect on what fears arise and create a dance that tells their story." The music played, sultry and inviting. Students partnered off, hesitating at first, shy of sharing their vulnerabilities through movement. Yet Sara moved among them, offering guidance, reassuring them with her presence. She caught sight of Sara, the girl who had flourished the day before. Today, Sara appeared tentative yet determined. Sara approached, sensing the unsaid struggle in her stance. "Remember, it's not just about tempo. Feel the rhythm of each other's insecurities. Let it guide you," Sara encouraged, her heart resonating with the urgency of her belief that true growth demanded honesty. As they danced, emotions seeped from the students, weaving together a rich tapestry of stories expressed through fluid movements. Sara felt each arc and pivot echo her own past struggles, yet she also sensed a shift in herself. She was not just the guide anymore, but a student of their expressions, absorbing their strength and fears as much as she hoped to share her own. Yet, as the lesson progressed, an unsettling realization simmered beneath her skin. Would her efforts in embracing vulnerability come at the expense of her own authority? What if, in this tango of emotions, she lost the instructor's role she had fiercely protected? As the lesson neared its end, the students appeared transformed, but Sara wrestled with her own turmoil. She had shared moments in the past, but now the stakes felt higher. What would happen if she invited them deeper still, into the shadows of her memories? A voice inside her clamored for authenticity, growing bolder as her apprehension intensified. "Today was just a start," she opened, adrenaline coursing through her. "But I want to invite you all to something harder next time. Let's make our dances a reflection not just of fears, but also of what we've conquered. I'll share an even fresher scar, one that's yet to find healing." A hush fell over the room. The weight of her promise hung heavy in the air, and her heart raced at the thought of bearing her truth. What insights might surface when confronted with that history? She pondered. And as the room vibrated with potential, she sensed the unmistakable stirrings of connection amplifying her hesitation. Would this new step deepen the bond, or fracture it into something irreparable? Sara paced the empty studio, her pulse still racing from the class's electricity. The quietude around her amplified the weight of her looming decision. Would she truly unveil her vulnerabilities, risking her students' trust and her own comfort? The prospect unsettled her, yet the possibility of creating profound connection tugged insistently at her heart. Sinking onto a bench, she stared at her reflection in the wall of mirrors. The woman staring back bore the markings of both fear and determination, a duality she had come to embrace. But recognition dawned. She had spent years cultivating an image, positioning herself as the steadfast instructor. Now, controversy flickered within her. Was she ready to shatter that facade? Reflecting on her students, she wondered how deeply they had resonated with the vulnerabilities she had previously shared. Would they, too, interpret her new openness as a sign of strength or a compromise of authority? With each passing moment, Self-doubt layered itself like a coat of thick fog in her mind. Her thoughts drifted to Sara. The determination etched in the girl's expressions during the class reminded Sara of her own battle to break free from the confines of perfection. If she could help Sara through her struggles, perhaps she could stoke her own fire in the process. It was a simple yet profound realization. Their healing could be mutually empowering. Still, the stakes felt high. Venturing into the shadows of her past was terrifying, yet staying trapped within them felt like a wasteland of unrealized potential. The two realities collided fiercely in her mind, grinding against her desire for authenticity and her instinct to hold back. Determined to navigate through her uncertainty, Sara stood, a rush of resolve pushing her forward. She began to practice, engaging thoroughly with the music that floated from the speakers, her body dancing through the anguish of her past. Each step reflected the scrapes and bruises she had accumulated over the years. Here she was, fully alive in movement, confronting the very fears she hoped to share, lacerating their grip on her soul. Yet with each successive turn, thoughts of her students crept back in, echoing louder with doubt. What scars would she reveal? Would they respect her narrative, or would it always be overshadowed by their perceptions of her? A teacher with standards, a figure behind the curtain. It struck her as unsettling and inevitable that they would view her truth through the prism of their experiences, which might skew the very connection she sought to build. Sinking into another moment of stillness, she envisioned Sara and her classmates mirroring her actions. Would they accept her authenticity? How would they react to the imperfections in her story? The challenge lay not only in sharing her past, but also in staying empathetic to the myriad of responses it would evoke. As the evening settled in, an unquantifiable shift unfurled within her. The prospect of revealing her scars no longer felt like a noose tightening around her throat, but rather a bridge extending into uncharted territory. Stepping into the studio one final time that day, Sara gathered her thoughts for tomorrow's session. "It's time," she murmured to herself, resolute. The promise of vulnerability stood before her like a tantalizing dance partner. But behind that anticipation flickered shadows filled with the unknown. Would her truth liberate her, or would it claw away the authority she had worked a lifetime to amass? The question hung in the air, a pit of potential stirring deeply within her as she prepared to embrace the next wave of vulnerability. What hidden layers would surface as she danced with her students' truths? And how would the exquisitely painful experience of sharing her past shape not only their perceptions, but also the very core of who she was becoming? The studio felt like a sanctuary, vibrant with energy, as Sara prepared for the class that would mark a new chapter in her life. With each passing moment, anticipation coursed through her veins, like music waiting to be unleashed. Today, she would share her deepest vulnerability, a performance that would illuminate her mantle as both teacher and learner. "Good afternoon, everyone," she greeted, the sunlight pouring through the studio windows reflecting a newfound glow in her eyes. The faces of her students beamed with enthusiasm, a collage of curiosity that fueled her determination. "Today, I want to take our exploration of vulnerability a few steps further. I'll share a piece of my past that I haven't revealed before, an experience that taught me the value of confronting fear and embracing authenticity." As the words spilled from her lips, she felt the atmosphere shift, tension mingling with anticipation. "I need you all to understand this isn't just for me. This is a journey we will share together." The energy thrummed in the room as she took a deep breath, grounding herself in her truth. "When I was your age, I faced a pivotal moment that nearly cost me my passion for dance. I had a performance that went horribly wrong. I forgot my steps, and the embarrassment pushed me to question my worth. I almost gave up on my dream." Sara's voice quivered slightly as she continued. "For years, I carried that failure with me, believing it defined who I was. It wasn't until I returned to the dance floor that I understood it could be a catalyst, a lesson that redefined my perspective on moving through fear." Her students listened intently, nodding in empathy. She could see their understanding, the light of recognition igniting within them. "So today, I invite you to be brave," she said, her voice strengthening. "Partner up as we explore not just dance, but the narratives we all carry. Share a moment of fear you've faced, then use your bodies to express that experience." The room hesitated, invigorated yet cautious. Sara moved among them, offering encouragement as they selected partners, the raw honesty tumbling forth. Laughter mixed with vulnerability enveloped the studio in a sense of belonging. She marveled at how the dance evolved, from uncertainty to raw expression. Each movement narrated stories. Sara embodied her performance anxiety, radiating newfound confidence as she broke free from her cocoon, twirling gracefully through her emotions. Other students, too, unearthed their struggles, finding strength in vulnerability. Every step they took echoed Sara's own journey of overcoming. She felt their fears transform in real time. Palpable connections were being forged. As they reunited in a circle post-dance, Sara narrated her journey further. Fear has a rhythm of its own. It can be paralyzing or invigorating, but how we respond shapes our trajectory. Their eyes were bright as they absorbed her message, fortifying the bond that had grown among them. One student raised her hand, speaking with confidence. "Your story helped me realize I'm not alone. I've always struggled before performances, afraid that I wouldn't be good enough. Hearing how you face that, it makes me feel brave." Sara's heart swelled with joy, the realization that her choice to embrace vulnerability had resonated. She was not merely an instructor or a participant. She was shaping lives, igniting ambitions. She had conquered her fears and was now empowering others to do the same. In that moment, she felt a deep surge of fulfillment. The award she had chased for so long paled in comparison to the impact she had created within that room. It wasn't the recognition that mattered anymore, but the profound connections and shared courage that energized her spirit. As they concluded, she sensed something transformative blooming. Sara knew this was just the beginning. The bold intersection of her past and present had laid a strong foundation for the future. Determined, she resolved to continue the journey beyond the classroom, channeling this categoric growth into wider initiatives that would foster resilience through dance for at-risk communities. Sara's final thought echoed in her heart. She had achieved not only personal victory, but had triggered a ripple effect. She could empower others to walk their paths of courage, ensuring that her experience was only the first step for them. With a soft smile, she declared, "Let's keep this momentum alive. Together we can build something that not only expresses our fears, but transforms them." And as the lights dimmed in the studio that evening, a fire ignited within Sara, glowing brighter than ever, a promise to herself and her students. She would never stop dancing with fear. Now, to you, the reader, this realization and inspiration must not go unnoticed. You need to subscribe now to catch every transformative story and personal breakthrough that will fuel your aspirations. Leave a like now to support the creators who share these empowering journeys. They truly make a difference. Comment your reactions, your fears, your ambitions. Let's grow together in this community. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to understand that facing fears leads to triumph. Don't wait even one more second to spread the message of resilience.